you're in Congress, and regardless of your background, I guess one of the most important things that you do is not necessarily the legislation, it is the interaction with your constituents. Because if you don't have a good interaction with your constituents, you won't get elected, and therefore you won't be here to do the policy work. I don't think there's anything that was sadder as a member of Congress. I lived in a district that had been very industrial, but the largest employers in my district by the time I took office back in following the 1992 election were hospitals. We were in the healthcare business. That's what we did. And a lot of large steel mills and glass plants and other industrial things that closed down. So from a standpoint of healthcare policy, it was important. It was not only the healthcare policy, but it was also a jobs issue. And so when the people would come to see us, they would have different problems. I don't think anything was ever sadder than when somebody came in and they saw you about a life or death issue. Someone in their family had an illness, and maybe it was an orphan disease, or maybe it was just something that we had not yet had the ability to cure, or they knew that a drug was in development, and how can we get access to this, where can we go? People were willing to go to extraordinary means. They would travel to other countries, they would do whatever, because they were fighting for the life or death of their family members. I think that I'm preaching to the choir in this room. You all know what that is like. So we end up thank goodness, I think the greatest committee in Congress, Energy and Commerce. We only had jurisdiction over bills that began with HR. And this is Mr. Dingell would remind us. But the point was that I also got on the Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee as the ranking member, and one of the many myriad alphabet soup agencies that we had jurisdiction over was the FDA. And so when PDUFA came to us, this was something that we would work on. Now, there were a lot of issues that we worked on during my 4 terms in Congress that were very partisan. PDUFA was not. It was one of those issues that was a complete bipartisan issue. We knew the history of it. We realized that back in the 80s, it took almost 2.5 years on average for drugs to be able to come to the marketplace. That was unacceptable. Something had to happen. And then for many years, there was an attempt to put this user fee on the drug companies, and our friends in the drug industry fought that. Now, why did they fight it? Because they thought the money was going to go to the general fund and it was going to be used to lower the deficit. They obviously didn't want a fee that didn't help the industry. But when everybody finally came together and said, all right, what we're going to do is put this user fee on, and it's going to be dedicated to the FDA so that we can put more money, not replace dollars that would normally be appropriated. The appropriated dollars will still be there, but to add additional dollars so that we have the ability to knock down the amount of time it takes to get these important drugs onto the marketplace. So we're now in the 5th reauthorization of PDUFA. And so what happens politically if this doesn't happen? What happens if we get into the 30th of September, or even months, really it has to be done months before that, because the Food and Drug Administration would have to begin to take action. There were 2,000 employees that were added to the FDA because of the money that went in, and more than half the money going in from these user fees. Well, they would have to begin to lay people off. There would be good people, scientists, doctors, and others who work for the Food and Drug Administration who would begin to look for other jobs, saying, look, everything is up in the air. We just had an election. Regardless of what your opinion is, wrong or right, there is turmoil. And now PDUFA, among many other things which needs to be reauthorized, and it's not getting done. Congress is not getting to it. Well, the goals letter has been completed. The industry themselves sat down with the FDA and worked up the goals letter. That's the first step. Now, the next step politically is it has to go to Congress, primarily on the House, the Energy and Commerce Committee, and the Senate Health Committee. And they're going to have to talk about what different issues they see. Now, there could be a lot of people that could say, hold on a second, this was done under the FDA while the Obama administration was in place. We have a new administration coming in. Therefore, does the new administration, the new people coming in the Trump administration, want to revisit this, or what role will Congress have in taking a look at the goals letter and where this PDUFA bill is going to go. But regarding, you have to remember now there are 4 user fee programs that are part of PDUFA. There's prescription drugs, there's generic drugs, there's biosimilars, and there's devices. So we're going to take a look at, Congress will take a look at these, the staff and the members will take a look at it, and they'll determine whether or not and what they want to do with it. I think that at a time, and I would kind of make this point, at a time when the kind of breakthroughs are occurring within the drug industry that are occurring now and are close to occurring, there has never been a more important time for PDUFA to be reauthorized in a very nonpartisan and a very expeditious manner. And I will be encouraging all of my friends here in Congress, and that includes my new friends who may be getting on these committees as the 2 parties in the House and Senate begin to reorganize. There will be some new members. And there will be a lot of staffers on Capitol Hill, some in very important positions. There will be some members who have never dealt with PDUFA before. So I'm asking everybody in this room, as you go to see members who are on the committee, or your member of Congress, or your senator, don't assume that they know what PDUFA is. And by the way, anybody who knows what PDUFA stands for, you are a Washington insider. Once you start talking in acronyms, you qualify as a Washington insider. But there really are a lot of people who never dealt with this before. So they need to hear your voice. You have to go in and talk to the staff, and talk to the member, and let them know how important this is. And the politics of it also, it's important that you bring it back to real life situations. Don't just talk in the terms of percentages and numbers, and they can get all of that stuff going to CRS. What they need to hear are the real life stories of people who you know, whose lives would be impacted if these drugs do not come to the market in a timely fashion. How this is going to change and be destructive to families. How things that really are within grasp, we are so close to finding cures for and developing new ways of dealing with them. It's very important that they hear from you. So the industry has come a long way in accepting these user fees, and not only accepting them, but advocating for them. And you'll be hearing from one of those industries today, talking about what this means as far as the expedition of these applications for drugs, going from 2.5 years back in the 80s to much shorter time frames now, and the ability to bring. So 2 things happen when that occurs. Number 1, the patients get the drugs faster. It's a great thing. Number 2, and it's also a great thing, the pharmaceutical company gets a return on their investor dollar quicker, which will bring more dollars into the pharmaceutical companies to continue to invest in new innovations and new drugs. All of that is very important. So that's the politics of PDUFA. We have to make sure that we get the word out there. We have to make sure that people understand that the House and Senate is going to work its will on this goal, and we're going to move forward. So I can't think of anything that is more important to this Congress, or more nonpartisan or bipartisan, pick your language, as we welcome the new Congress, and to make sure that PDUFA is done, and is done sometime no later than mid to late summer, because we don't want to find a time frame when the FDA begins to have uncertainty and we start to lose good people.